Okay, we will call to order our regular meeting of council. Oh, that just popped on. Okay, calling to order our regular meeting, and we'll start by moving the mic back a little, sorry. We'll start by recognizing that we are meeting today on the unceded traditional territories of the Sechot and Hoopachesit First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items councillors would like to add? Seeing, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add an item under new business M3, a motion with regards to staff producing a policy on staff reports. That could be a notice of motion or a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I would like to, somewhere along the line, ask a question about the racket club and the building permit status.
Thank you. We'll add that as M4. Okay, so we've got items M3 and M4 added under new business. Any other items from council? Seeing none. Any items from the corporate officer?
None for me, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, then would somebody like to move approval of our agenda as amended?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And under minutes, we've got minutes of the special meeting held at 9:30 a.m. and the regular meeting held at 2 p.m. on February 13th, 2023.
Move to adopt.
Moved to adopt by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And we'll move on to public input period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on topics of relevance to City Council, and we take up to 4 speakers for up to 3 minutes each. Would anyone like to speak today? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our delegations. Our first delegation is Rihanna Miller from Community Futures. Come on forward. Yes.
Madam Mayor, I should excuse myself at this point of the meeting. I have a conflict on this issue as a director of the Community Futures Board.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patola. We'll just wait for you to have an opportunity to leave the room. Shall we start?
Do I have to wait until they shut the door?
That's great. Thank you, Rihanna. And noting that you do have Travis with you as well. Welcome, Travis. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for this opportunity to present the Adventure Sport Park Initiative. The vision is for the creation of a new regional scope, all-ages skill development park for the adventure sports of skateboarding, BMX, scootering, and mountain biking situated in the Echo Park area. The initiative was started in 2019, and the planning team consists of Community Futures and riders of the Alberni Valley in communication with key members of the Alberni Valley Skate Park Association. We've also been working with the city's Parks and Recreation and Heritage and Economic Development offices. Research and consultation has been carried out with adventure sport athletes, Vancouver Island municipalities with similar parks, Skateboard Canada, and recognized park designers and builders. We received letters of support from Hoopachesit First Nation, Sechot First Nation, the school district, and from local service and business organizations. The intent is to build in the area of the existing skate park and expand it into the treed site along Kendall Avenue. The rationale for the location is based on user demand, accessibility, and proximity to supporting infrastructure. The area is central, already zoned for recreation, not designated for a competing use. It does not interfere with existing recreation infrastructure. It has ample parking nearby, is close to transit stops, offers a safe practice space for the very young, is close to the trail access points for older children, youth, and adults, is close to washrooms and the Echo Fieldhouse facility, can be set up to host sporting events, and is the preferred location as requested by the user groups. The proposed park has 3 components: a new and expanded all-wheels skateboard park replacing the old one, or the current one, a pump track and a set of mountain bike jump lines, and a mountain bike technical skills area. These are the approximate locations for the jump lines and the area to practice mountain bike technical skills for use in our local trail system. So to help us visualize the park, this is Nanaimo Stevie Smith Bike Park and Harewood Skate Park. Powell Rivers Pump Track, Skate Park, and Jump Lines. And I'll just draw your attention to some of the quotes there. We were asking some of the city staff to comment on the impact. They said, look at the big picture of what this does for a town. It's creating a different culture. This is Cumberland Skate Park and Bike Park. And we have the designs from our very own students at Pope John Paul, the school. It was for grade 5, 6, and 7 class assignment. So these were some of the renderings that they came up with for our park. The park is anticipated to cost $2.3 to $2.5 million with an annual asset management budget of $15,000 to $25,000 a year. We've incorporated a 30% materials increase into that higher range. The results of the public engagement will guide the park design, scale, and complexity, which will in turn inform that final budget. Community Futures has allocated funding that can be put towards the design phase of the project. The design process can start anytime. Construction could start as soon as this fall and be completed by spring, so we're looking at around 8 months total. We recognize that the proposed park is on the unceded territory of the Tsahat and Hupacheset First Nations. Our request of Mayor and Council is to designate the land for the park for the next 4 years and to prioritize the project by city staff to assist Community Futures in locating funding. The intent is for Community Futures to author funding applications and to seek additional funding through donations and sponsorships. On Vancouver Island, the majority of similar parks have received some amount of municipal funding. The new park would remain the property of the city. Community Futures is prepared to dedicate staff time for funding applications and communication elements of this project. The park has already been highlighted in the latest What We Heard report for the new OCP Vision and Touchstones. Rove, so that's the mountain bike community, has had an interest in the park since 2010, and the Skate Park Association has been advocating for a new park for the same amount of time. The current all-wheel skateboard park is among the oldest in the province. The concrete and copings are severely deteriorated, and there are a few individual features. There's no beginner area, no lighting, and it has fallen well behind a modern standard build. Its own users rated as an F or a C letter grade. Meanwhile, the rest of Vancouver Island has over 50 skate or bike parks spread across just over 20 municipalities, with a minimum of 22 new park builds and renewals happening since 2015. The next slides demonstrate the project's alignment with the city's 2019 to 2023 strategic priorities, starting with responding to demographic change and improving quality of life. The Adventure Sport Park would provide opportunity for healthy outdoor activities with users expected to be aged 5 to 39. This age cohort increased 20% in the last 5 years and represents 35% of our population. It boosts the growing outdoor recreation and tourism sectors, promotes the trail system, sustains local outdoor lifestyle businesses, and includes Port Alberni and regional park hopping circuits that include more than a dozen communities. The popularity of skateboarding has increased since its inclusion in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, with growing interest from women, girls, and Indigenous people, and there's been marked local increase in mountain bike purchases and trail usage, particularly during the pandemic. A single weekend event at the new park could contribute $100,000 to the local economy. Right now, our locals leave town to experience the parks and events in other communities. The Adventure Sport Park resolves a long-standing need for a new skateboard park and a dedicated, accessible, safe space for the mountain bike community. The park also presents major opportunities to host sporting events, instructional programs, and user group meetups. The park is low impact during and after construction, with minimal to no demand on utilities. With proper maintenance, its lifespan could be upwards of 25 years. It engages our community in pursuits that value nature and the outdoors. The forest and trees are part of that culture. It is a step towards envisioning Port Alberni as a blue zone community, living longer through being active, healthy, and outdoors. This is a low barrier, no barrier park. A single piece of equipment and a helmet is all that's needed to participate from beginner to expert level. These parks are well known to become community gathering spaces where people simply enjoy watching how participants persevere at their sport. These are democratic spaces with no obligation to buy something to stay there or move along after a certain amount of time has been spent there. These are sports that require focus, patience, dedication, discipline, and creativity. Athletes have to be self-motivated and unafraid of failing over and over, often in front of others before they get it just right. These are the qualities and pursuits that we should be encouraging in our young people. These parks are transformative for communities. If my team's requests are approved, we'll be able to move forward and source funding while demonstrating to our funders that the landowners and future owners of the new asset are invested and on board. We're confident the new park will be a strong attraction for year-round visitation and will continue to position Port Alberni's reputation as an outdoor recreation powerhouse. But more than that, it clearly shows the Alberni Valley's young people that they are valued, they are an important part of our community, and they deserve this. So thank you for listening, and I welcome your comments.
Thank you so much, Brianna, and thank you to you and your group for all the work you've put into this already. It's so great to have an update on where you've gotten to, and I know I've heard this at the Chamber and a couple other places as well, but we're really thrilled that you've taken on this project. And I think you're going to hear a lot of positive support, and then I'm going to probably suggest that the best step for us would be to ask staff for a report on if a memorandum of understanding or what kind of mechanism gets us there in order to accommodate your request. Councillor Mealy, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, just I was very excited to see this. Thank you for coming today, by the way. So I was very excited to see this and the in-depth material that you have here for it. So super happy for this. Of course, it all comes down to cost as well, and that's our side of things. So I'm very happy to see that looking for funding in all sorts of ways, and if we can assist in any way, obviously. So, but definitely, we're on the right track, and I really appreciate you bringing this to us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dame, and then Councillor Solda.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, excellent presentation. Yeah, well done. It was it's really good to see it all come together like this, and I think that it's a no-brainer that this is the sort of thing that our community needs to show our support for the youth and provide healthy activities for them. Yeah, like has been echoed here, it's just a matter of figuring out funding, and you've obviously taken some good steps in showing that you'll be looking for some funding yourself and with the help of city staff. So with approval, of course. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Solda.
Great report. When I first read it, I went, wow, yes, and I love how you've presented it to council. Just a quick question, have you any source of funding at the moment? Have you collected any, or you're just
There's a small pocket from the Skate Park Association that they've been raising over many years through their drop-in fees for their activities, and Community Futures has set aside $50,000.
It's a great start, and I know there's a long ways to go. And I just look at our skateboard park, and when I go to other communities and I see their skateboard park, and I go, oh, it's really disappointing thinking about ours. And for years, young people have come before council and have asked us to do something to our skateboard park, and it's never lifted off the ground until now, and I'm really excited about it. Others have tried, but it's never happened. And you see a lot of kids skateboarding, not in our park, but on the streets, on the sidewalks, wherever they can have the challenge. There's no challenge in our skateboard park. So kudos to your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have been to the skateboard park in Nanaimo. Just to clarify, I was skateboarding. I was there with grandkids. But what really struck me was the variety of ages that were there. Like parents were skateboarding with their young children, or the young children might be on a bike and their parents would be skateboarding. It was fantastic, and it was just packed. So I thought that was really fantastic, and that's really struck me that we need something like this in Port Alberni, because we currently don't have that kind of thing. And it really ties in with my priority this term of working with youth and youth strategy and what can we do for youth in our community. So if there's anything I can do, reach out. I'll be there to support you any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Council, I'm going to move that we direct staff to prepare a report on next steps to support the Adventure Park project. And I think we already have contributed or made some kind of declaration to the land, but anyways, a report on next steps in order to get us there.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rihanna. Okay, and item number 2 for delegations today, we have Marcy DeWitt from the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you for having me this afternoon. As always, I look forward to presenting to Mayor and Council. As coordinator of the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, we aim to make our way across the region to each one of the municipalities and regional districts annually to ensure that our activities, who we are, as well as any of our upcoming projects are well known and Mayor and Council are engaged in that process. So, just a little bit about us for new councillors, new faces to this presentation. The Alberni Clayoquot Health Network was, whenever you animate slides, it takes a little bit longer here. So, the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network was formed in 2011. Since that time, we've been working very closely, first on really identifying how we were going to work with community. So ensuring that we had a strong governance structure that was bringing information up from the communities into the hands of decision makers, but was also cyclical. So it's well informed by community stakeholders, bringing that up to decision makers and ensuring that we're resourcing what we hear from community. So in 2014, we kind of came up with our final governance model and began really outreaching into community and doing the work, identifying what it was that we were going to be working on. So the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network is a multidisciplinary network. We work with all members of our community around the social determinants of health. We receive annual funding from Island Health to fund our coordination, and our kind of key deliverables with that contract are to be looking at the modifiable risk factors and other factors that impact health outside of our health system. So a little bit about our structure, this governance structure that we came to in 2014 and started implementing in 2015. As I mentioned, we are a multidisciplinary network. We consider anybody in the Alberni Clayoquot living, working, and playing here as part of the network. In order to have strong ties and decision-making practices, we have a table of partners that's somewhat similar to a traditional board, but the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network is not a formal entity. We're hosted through the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District, and so we're considered a special committee. So these are some of the folks that we had at our 2022 Table of Partners memberships, Table of Partners representation. And we've added to this list as well. So a good cross-section of individuals from different communities, different industries, and different local governments. In addition to just kind of our network, as well as our governance structure, we have our action tables in which we move forward work around our key priorities. So I'll be speaking to you about a couple of those opportunities and projects that we're working on. So in 2018, we launched our strategic plan that we are working from at this moment. It includes 4 priority areas: network development, which is very much focused on our internal governance, ensuring that we are always looking at ways to better reflect community voice and demonstrating equity in our practices. We also have community connectedness, which deals a lot around transportation and health equity. So really looking at the ways that we have access to healthy services, access to resources in our communities. We have building regional prosperity, which is poverty reduction, and knowledge and capacity, which we've threw in as a little bit of a catch-all, but it's starting to take a bit of or quite a life of its own. So I'll delve into those a little bit more. Oops, go back. Our Building Regional Prosperity priority. In 2020, we launched the Building Prosperity in the Alberni-Clayoquot Poverty Reduction Action Plan. This resulted from years and years of work around poverty reduction, bringing stakeholders together as well as community members in order to identify 4 main recommendations for our region, as well as a variety of different approaches that were identified from community members as required in order to move this work forward. So I'll make sure you can make note of our website at the end of the presentation, and all that information is accessible to you. Those were adopted by our municipalities last year. As I mentioned, through our work with connected communities, we're often working on transportation. This includes a lot of work in our rural and remote communities, ensuring that those communities have access to services. We've also done quite a lot of work advocating around health services and what that looks like in each one of our region, and working with stakeholders such as BC Transit to make sure a local voice is included in the transportation planning. Certainly a work in progress, but one that we've, I guess, seen a lot more uptake on in the last few years. Knowledge and capacity building, as I mentioned, has become a little, or started as a catch-all and has become its own beast. We do a lot of work networking other networks and connecting with communities of practice around our kind of focus areas. We do a lot of work throughout Vancouver Island with other community health networks to talk to the value of these kinds of initiatives and ensuring that community voice is heard and brought into the decision-making process. And through this work, we received some attention from the Tamarack Institute, both from our work in poverty reduction, as well as from our work in these communities of practice. They were in touch around our Communities Building Youth Futures opportunity. So this is a program that we have partnered with the Tamarack Institute and the government to ensure that there is funding for youth convening and bringing up the youth priority and voice into ensuring that youth priorities are actioned. So we have developed a youth facilitation team with a youth facilitator in each sub-region of the Alberni-Clayoquot. We have a Alberni Valley facilitator, West Coast, and Barclay facilitator. And working with youth, they have identified priorities around belonging and support, mental health and addictions, and connections to land. And in the short year that we've been doing this work, we've been able to fund about $140,000 worth of programming throughout the region, touching back to those kind of 3 priority areas with youth. More to come on that. We're really excited to have received confirmation on another years of funding for that program, and our youth facilitators will be kind of continuing their work there. So lastly, for this coming year, we have kind of 4 main priority areas that we're looking at. One is the continuation of this Communities Building Youth Futures project that I mentioned, and those increasing opportunities to engage with youth. We will be working through the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District to apply for the second stream of poverty reduction funding, and that is to do some work around equity and diversity. So looking at stigma reduction and the recommendations that were identified in our poverty reduction action plan. I think we've spoke in previous years significantly about that, but we'll be partnering with Literacy Alberni and a couple other organizations to make this happen. We also have a spring network gathering, which we will be planning for the Alberni Valley to look at health priorities in the region. And we'll be excited to invite all of our decision makers in the region to our annual Island Community Health Network gathering, so that especially new folks, can learn a lot more about community health networks and how they work. So just in closing, all of our contact information, the various different ways that you can find out information about us. And I've put stars on a couple key areas on our website. So About ACHN will take you to all of our governance documents, our annual reports, and anything else you might want to know about us. And then under our work is all of our reports and progress around transportation, poverty reduction, as well as knowledge and capacity building in the region. Thank you very much for your time today, and it's always a pleasure to come speak to you.
Thank you so much, Marcy, and thanks to you and the rest of the network for the work that you're doing in the community to keep everything connected. Are there questions or comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very privileged to be part of the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, and Marcy's an excellent coordinator. She works extremely hard for this organization. And I'm extremely grateful for your knowledge and capacity building part of this. I try and take advantage of as many webinars and Zoom meetings as I can. They're very relevant for our community, so I thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, through you, Ms. DeWitt. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate that. I am, so as soon as I love having the computer here so I can go on the website. So, and just to see some of the challenges, such as 21% of all residents live in poverty. That's 1.1 out of every 5 people in our region. 15% poverty rate for children in 2-parent homes, 62% poverty rate for children in lone parent families. That's huge. In such a small area, such a small community, but I mean, of course, it's the whole regional district. So I appreciate the information, and I do, like yourself, I do encourage people to quickly take a look at your website and see some of the numbers. It's a little staggering at some point. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you so much, Marcy, for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. Item number 1, the 2023 to 2027 financial plan.
Sorry. That's right. That's right. So going back to the start, with the financial plan and the delayed meeting from the 21st, we've pushed back the schedule. So now council can see the new schedule, which is now on our website and on social media to inform the public. So we've pushed back that meeting on the 21st. Now it's on March 6th. March 20th is now the E-Town Hall, so that's just delayed by 2 weeks. And of course, this just pushes back our anticipated completion of the financial plan as far as adoption to the 24th. So this puts us closer to that statutory deadline. We can still meet the deadline to undertake the financial plan adoption in time and the tax rate bylaws, so that will occur before the deadline on May 14th. With the question and answer form that's in the agenda, there was no staff report that was included, but if there's any further questions related to the financial plan, we can take those right now from council. If there's nothing else, our next opportunity will be on March 6th to undertake any questions. So,
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew. Are there budget questions today, either from the budget itself or follow up to the Q&A document? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just more along the lines of procedural. So, and of course, I'm a little old school with this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But so I have a bunch that I've listed line by line items. Would that be better off at the committee of the whole meeting rather than today? Because I do have several, I guess, that's the question.
No, that's perfect. So a couple of different, well, Andrew, why don't you speak to the best way for those to come forward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to Councillor Mealy. With that, the anticipated get down and ask the questions was for the 21st, obviously with the delay. But by all means, if you feel you'd like to answer that today, you have that option. But really the anticipated committee of the whole, get down to line by line and talk about that was going to be the 21st, and now that is March 6th.
And I would suggest that if there are several specific questions, I think what we want is to make sure that those can be included in the Q&A document, and then we can also go over them at the committee of the whole. You could either read them out loud today, or if you're okay with it, you could send those in an email to staff so that they could be formally included in the Q&A document. That gives staff time to prepare, make sure we have proper information, rather than at our next meeting, you asking the questions and maybe not being able to get the information. So if you want to send an email, then we'll make sure it's in the document.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'll do that just because, like I said, I'm a little old school with this. I go line by line and I ask a question, I expect an answer right away. And I know it's very tough to do that when it's budget. And it's very tough in this for me to go, all right, well, can you tell me more about other financial management? That's up 40%. So I'll send an email to you, Ms. McGifford, and through you, Madam Mayor, and then we can be prepared for the next meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Other questions or comments today? Councillor Solta.
So I'm in the same line as Councillor Mealy there. I have a lot of questions because I was away, and so I'll wait until the next meeting when we have our budget meeting and go through it.
I just want to note that if there are specific questions, people can ask them. If they can be answered today, then Andrew will answer them today. It's just if there's really specific, lines and what's the difference here, I think it's better that we get proper information rather than Andrew trying to answer on the spot. But if you want to read your questions out today, we can certainly do that. The sooner the better, I think, to get them kind of on the record and include them in the document for going forward if you'd prefer that.
Probably the best thing would be to maybe write it all out and send it to you. I'll give it to you tomorrow when we have the audit committee, and just for future.
Madam Mayor, I think that'd be great if councillors have questions, we can take those and then populate the question and answer, and then that gives the ability to ask that question. You can still ask that question at the next committee of the whole, and then we can point to it in the Q&A, so it's written within the agenda.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay, and I think this is just for information today. Thank you very much, Andrew. So we'll move on then to item number 2, Roger Creek Connector Trail Project Grant Award. Tim.
Madam Mayor, some good news. We found out February 14th we were in receipt of $435,978 in grant funds from the BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program, which is really good news, and it's for the Roger Creek Connector Trail project. And as you know, we've been trying to find grant funding for that project for a while. That will be a trail that will connect the existing Roger Creek path just to the, on one bank of the Roger Creek footbridge, and it will go under the trestle and connect with the Scott Kenny trails further up Roger Creek. So that trail network will be much more easily accessed. It'll also, this project will also fortify some of the bank that is at risk of slumping there, and so we'll be doing some environmental work while we're in there and have a great path as well, which is terrific. Couple things in progress here, or challenges if you like. Last September, when council directed we apply for this grant, council also directed that we amend the budget for 2023 by adding $290,000 of city funding for that project, and that we identify taxation for that $290,000. Earlier this year, as staff were working on developing a draft financial plan and not having heard back on this grant application, we removed that $290,000 from the 2023 draft budget, only to try to get the tax increase down to where it is currently. And so council will need to consider, not today, but you'll need to consider whether you accept this grant funding and how we source the city portion of funding, $290,000. We're also looking to see if we can defer this project into 2024, if the grant funder will allow that, or if we have to build in 2023. And we're also looking to see if we're able to get the engineering work done in time to actually do it in 2023. As you know, there's a lot of grant funding out right now for infrastructure, and we expect that the engineering firms will be very busy. So there's a few variables. At the time of writing this report, we didn't have answers to those variables. We just wanted to make you aware. We got the grant, which was great news. And in the budget process, we'll be asking you to consider where the city's funds come from and which year they land in. Any questions now that we might be able to respond to?
Thank you. I think this is really exciting. As you mentioned, this is a grant, a project that we've submitted a grant application for. I can think of, I think, 4 different times. So really exciting that we have finally received this funding. And I just wanted to note that $450,000 approximately is an exciting grant to receive. We also, of course, heard from the province last week or the week before, their announcement that they're giving $1 billion to municipalities for infrastructure funding. And we know, of course, that we'll find out more details around exactly how much that is in the next week or so. So while I don't think today we could add $290,000 into our budget this year with where we're at, we do know that that project or that funding is coming. And so I would suggest we certainly accept the grant funds and make this project that is really exciting for our community and something that the community's been asking for a long time to complete that trail, make it a reality. And of course, we'll consider where the funds come from, I think probably once we hear on how much of that $1 billion our share is, and also, of course, what kind of stipulations there are around it. But I did hear when MLA Josie Osborne let us know about the project that she did say it's infrastructure, and that can be active transportation, road and sewer work. It can be a variety of things. So I do think just from that conversation that using those funds for this purpose would certainly be a fit. So I think we're not going to be in a position where we have to say no to the grant and turn it away. Tim, did you want to comment before I go to Councillor Mealy?
If I could just say one more thing, Madam Mayor, this exemplifies what we're seeing more frequently now with grant opportunities arising with very little runway to get an application in. And I don't know if that's intentional or not on senior government's part, but it shows us that we need to be grant ready on projects. And when this one came along, we looked at the few that we had in hand. And so we've been trying to, as you know, the city's been trying to get projects to the grant-ready stage and then waiting for the right opportunity. And I think this is an example of that model works, and we should continue on that path, no pun intended.
Absolutely, and I think we heard of another one today that we're working on getting to that point so that when funding does come available, we're ready to jump on it. Councillor Mealy? Nope. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. This report is just for information. If someone would like to move to receive it.
Motion to receive the report, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Not seeing any other comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And under staff reports, we have accounts. Item number 1 is accounts. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated February 27th, 2023 be received and checks numbered 152285 to 152353 inclusive in payment of accounts totaling $1,114,489.77 be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. No bylaws today and no correspondence for action, no proclamations. So we'll move on to correspondence for information. Danielle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in summary, we received some correspondence from School District 70 regarding their strategic planning process just opening up, and that there will be public input opportunities through that. The Forestry Enhancement Society of BC outlined a letter regarding some climate change concerns and work in the area. The Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation provided a response to City's letter of support for recapitalization of ICE-T, saying that they're continuing their discussions with ICE-T on potential funding sources on the provincial side for that. We received a response from the UBCM regarding Health Canada resolution and increased cannabis regulation resources, a resolution from 2022, simply saying that they are aware of ongoing challenges and continue to put resources where they feel they are best suited. They obviously had no further commitments on helping municipalities specifically with dealing with these enforcement actions, but that they continue to monitor the situation. We received a number of correspondence from the public around the proposed tax rate increases that were introduced with the financial plan at this stage, varying concerns with that 8% kind of start point that we're at. And we received correspondence from regarding the power and lighting around Upper Johnston Road. And we also received a correspondence regarding a bylaw noise complaint.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if the letter for request for power to Meridian and Upper Johnson Road, has that been referred to the engineering department just so he can look and see if it's even feasible to get power there and what the approximate cost would be?
Tim?
Madam Mayor, Council, I've had a conversation with the director, but not directed him to action this. If council desires us to get a price estimate, we can have a contractor look at that.
I just think it would be such a nice entryway into our community if there was some nice, pretty white lights. It makes such a difference on Third Avenue, and to see it on Johnson Road, I think would be incredible. And if I read the letter correctly, I think Home Hardware and Canadian Tire are willing to donate the lights. We just have to get the power to it.
So Councillor Haggard, I think if you wanted to, you could move to refer that to engineering for some further information to come back to us. And just noting that we did ask for some information to come back through our budget process. I think that's already in the Q&A document, but it might be a more specific look from engineering on what the requirements would be.
I'd like to ask that this letter be referred to engineering to look at the feasibility, if it's possible, and what the approximate cost would be. Thanks, Rob.
I'll second that, but I have a question.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Go ahead, Councillor Solda.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, I would like to get that report for the budget process because that's going to be important because it'll be a line item. Unless I make a motion that we also refer this to the budget process.
I think it's already referred to the budget process because it's in our Q&A document because the
Yes,
question's
I
been
put that
asked.
there, yeah.
So I think we're okay on that. And I'm sure the Director of Engineering can get us something probably high level at least to get started for budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other questions or comments on this? Councillor Dame?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we get some clarification on where exactly these lights are going to be? I'm still a little foggy on that.
The talk over the years has been about the center median on Upper Johnston Road. Yeah, yeah, in front of Boston Pizza area. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Patola and then Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to address item 1F, a letter from D. Dunbar on the allocation of taxes for city recreational services. I understand that various shared services between the city and the ACRD contributions are calculated by a formula that is somewhat different for each service. I'm wondering if we could have a report from staff as to what shared services we have and how those contributions are calculated so that not only council but also the public would be aware of the fact that there is cost sharing to the extent that it happens and where it might be reasonable to adjust it.
Absolutely. So we'll get you to make a motion on that. But I just wanted to add that several years ago, I think when Scott Kenny was the director of Parks and Rec, we had a report that showed kind of the per capita contribution for Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, Sprout Lake versus the per capita contribution for City of Port Alberni residents for recreation specifically. But I'm wondering on your comment, if you're looking for all shared services or specific to recreation costs?
Well, I'd be very interested to read that report because that might answer a lot of questions, especially for Mr. Dunbar. But I think, though, given that that issue is raised and it comes up over and over again in different areas about the delineation between the regional district and the city and who's responsible for what, it would be useful for going forward to understand all the services that we share and how the different services are dissected because they're not all the same formula. And that might be helpful to not only this council, but also to the public in understanding why things are the way they appear to be.
Great. So I'm going to suggest that we invite the regional district to come as a delegation. It is budget time, and they are going around presenting to different communities in different areas. I think that that's sort of like regional governance 101 and more specific to our area of what we jointly contribute to and what our shared services are could be really valuable for new councillors certainly and for members of the public for understanding. Additional to that, I think that having those numbers updated, and I don't think the regional district will necessarily bring that. I think it's better suited to come from our staff. Having the numbers updated on costs for recreation specifically is probably something that's reasonably easy to produce for our staff. So maybe it's a delegation for more general information on shared services and then an updated just high-level report on recreation costs, who pays what, and kind of what the costs are if you're a city resident versus what the costs are if you're a regional district resident. Does that sound like it would cover it?
That sounds like a great start. Thank you.
Great. Then I will make that motion to invite the regional district to come as a delegation to talk about regional services. And then additionally, same motion, but additionally for an updated cost number on recreation services.
And I would like to second that.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Not seeing any comments on this specifically. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to the first motion then. I think we voted on it. Yeah?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I don't actually recall the vote on the other one, so yeah.
Okay. You'll have to
just
just
cover that.
disregard that we just voted on a motion while we had another motion on the floor then. Thank you. We were excited. That's right. Okay, then on the first motion, which was for a report from engineering, I believe. Okay, moved and seconded on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor Haggard, go ahead.
Councillor Patola got us off track.
Any other items of correspondence councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, number D, on a bylaw noise complaint from D Nash, and hot tubs, regarding hot tub noise. And this is not the first time a hot tub noise has come up, complaint has come up. And I mean, I was invited to the lady's house at 10 o'clock at night to hear a hot tub noise complaint. It was a senior, an elderly person. I never heard anything. She made me lay in her bed to hear the noise and everything. I mean, it was really weird. So maybe we can clarify, is there a noise bylaw for hot tubs nowadays? Did I miss something through the years, or has it been just to give this
Danielle,
person
if you
a
have
sense?
a high-level overview, and then I would suggest we just refer this, I mean, this letter's probably been referred to bylaw already.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We do have a noise bylaw. It is, noises between, certain hours and excessive noise. Within that, I don't think hot tub noises would be specified or defined or anything like that. So, I mean, it has been referred to bylaw, and they are able to go take a look and determine if there's anything excessive about it.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt of our correspondence? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Okay. No report from in camera, so we'll move on to council reports. And thank you, Councillor Haggard, for the thorough report. Any other items councillors would like to speak to, or Councillor Haggard, of course, if you'd like to speak to anything specifically.
This isn't my report, but I just want to let the council and the community know that a advisory committee has been formed for the proposed new aquatic facility. We're having our first meeting on Wednesday afternoon. So that's going to be exciting to at least get the process started. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, question I was just going to ask as well, is it at the regional district, and will it be live streamed?
That I'm not sure, but I could probably find out and let you know.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. I think it's a process that I would certainly encourage community members to really stay involved in, whether you're on that committee or not. I think it's incredibly important that the community is aware of what is being said and the direction that work is going. I think there's a high level of interest in this project, and let's not let that project be kind of the path of it be determined by the 10 people who maybe happen to end up on the committee when we've got 25,000 people who are interested in this project. So if you could keep us aware of the dates, that would be fantastic. Okay, then any other items? No? Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure that this is the right moment to present this, but I think that it would be, I think it's important that we make some sort of statement regarding the Sachat's recent revelation, their findings. And I saw that Gord Johns had made his support known and submitted that to the government regarding his support for their list of requests or demands, or however you would like to say it. Calls to action, thank you. That's the right wording. And I think that we might consider making a similar statement as well. So I don't know if that's a notice of motion or exactly how to go about that, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Dame. I think it would be a great start because there were several calls to action, and although Chief Councillor Ken Watts did note that they weren't municipally focused suggestions or calls to action, we have a role in carrying those forward. So I think a great start would be a staff report on those on those calls to action, and looking to see where we could focus our effort to best support Sachat as they go through that work. So if you want to add that as a notice of motion, well, go ahead and do that now if you'd like.
Yeah, I would like to make a notice of motion that staff prepare a report regarding the Sachat's calls to action. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is a notice of motion, so it doesn't have to be seconded today. That will come to our next meeting. And thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important. And just for council's awareness, I've had ongoing conversations with Gord, with Josie as well, and with Chief Watts about how we can work together on carrying that forward. But I think that a municipal perspective is really important here. So thanks for bringing that. Okay. Any other items before we move on from council reports? Okay, then we'll go to new business. So we've got the one notice of motion added to the agenda. Now, Councillor Douglas, I believe, made both of these, and he's not able to be here today. So we do have two items on the agenda. Virtual meeting technology notice of motion provided February 13th. Tim, would you like to update on virtual meeting technology, or if there's someone more suited than yourself to do so?
Oh, I'm sure there is, Madam Mayor. But I'll take a start. Our technology is in the room now, as you can see, and we have some ability to meet virtually. That'll help us, we think, in our e-town hall budget meeting. I would recommend that council first consider how you want to utilize that technology in your procedures bylaw, which is pending that discussion. So my recommendation to you would be not to consider taking steps there before you consider the procedures bylaw. And with that, I'll ask Danielle to speak to your awareness of the equipment.
Thank you. Go ahead, Danielle.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I don't have too much to add, but yeah, it is in place technically. It's just a matter of establishing the process now to support it, and that ideally would be through the procedures bylaw. Like I said, we are prepared to test it for the e-town hall because that'll be advertised as an electronic participation thing. So we will give it a bit of a dry run there, but otherwise, we'll be bringing that forward with the procedures bylaw.
Thank you. And Tim, are you able to update on our code of conduct and for council's awareness, kind of rolling that together with a conversation around procedures bylaw?
On that one, I will defer to Danielle, and I'll point out Jeff Pellick is in the room, and Jeff's IT team was responsible for the equipment change. So if you want to hear from Jeff, he's available.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, we have asked Jerry Berry to help us facilitate both the procedure bylaw discussion and the code of conduct. So he will be coming to council in around the second or third week of March to set up a meeting there to introduce both topics and then kind of firm up the timeline. But we're looking for opportunities for council to kind of weigh in on both items at the same time. We anticipate the procedures bylaw will really just be a discussion of what council wants to see for changes with some, facilitated discussion around some of the consequences or alternatives that are there. And then from there, it'll be the focus on the code of conduct through the end of March and early April, with the option of a committee of the whole, where we will invite Jerry to speak to some of the items in a public setting, allowing for public input opportunities, and kind of present where we came to as council for that document.
Thank you. So I think that's a really important discussion, and I know we've had a few kind of procedures bylaw questions and notices of motion and motions that have come from council over the last few months. So glad to see that we've got that work kind of underway, and just wanted to note that the second motion we have written on the agenda here today as well is procedures bylaw kind of focused. So I would suggest, if nobody reads the motions, then they just do not exist. But I would suggest that we just don't make these motions today, and we bring the conversation to procedures bylaw. It doesn't stop Councillor Douglas from bringing them back if he feels. But I think at this point we need to have a greater conversation about our procedures and what that looks like, rather than kind of isolating it to one piece, which is online questions. So unless somebody feels differently, and if so, go ahead and read the motions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't wish to read the motions because they're not mine and I would not be in a position to support them. But I do wish to recognize the importance of these motions to Councillor Douglas, and I would simply move that they be tabled until the beginning of June. By that time, we may have dealt with them already and then they can disappear, but if they aren't, then Councillor Douglas's impetus would be preserved.
Absolutely. Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I actually had agreed on Councillor Douglas's behalf to make these motions, and I feel my honor may be on the line here if I do not. However, if we're going to table these, if that makes more sense, hopefully Councillor Douglas will forgive me.
I think Councillor Douglas will be fine, and I would suggest we actually table and defer are similar, but I would suggest we defer them to, if we table them, then they're supposed to come back at the next meeting. So we defer them to the first meeting of June, and that could be a friendly amendment to your motion. If you would like to second that, and if you decide you want to read Councillor Douglas's motion, then that would be fine, and nobody might second them, but.
Sure, I think the friendly amendment will be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Dame. Any comments on that? Okay, seeing none. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. So I do think that's great, and they'll come back automatically, and likely by that point in time, we will have already worked through them. And I did have a conversation with Councillor Douglas as well, where I talked about possibly deferring them if needed, and he was supportive of that. So I think we're going to be just fine in that sense. So we do have M3, a motion or notice of motion. Your choice, Councillor Patola, on staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this perhaps may end up being deferred or tabled or otherwise not seconded as well. But before I make the motion, I'll just pre-state that I think this would be useful for our further discussions. So this motion is that to direct staff to prepare a policy on the form of staff reports, including requirements that they be written, except in situations where staff indicates otherwise, that they contain all background information, and provide a review of all relevant courses of action, but at least 2 options for proceeding, not including the do nothing or something else option. That is the motion.
Thank you. And you're moving that as a motion, not reading it as a, okay, perfect. Is there a seconder? Okay, moved and seconded, if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really, the purpose of this is not that we need to change all the procedures right now, but this type of policy I view as being subsequent to the procedures bylaw, and so therefore somewhat separate from the bylaw procedures that we're working through in code of conduct. And by asking staff to write the policy with regards to that, I'm actually asking staff to give us their best advice on how they would best like to provide reports, so that we can then consider that and respond with how we can best receive information. So it does seem to parallel the procedures bylaw process, but I think it parallels it as a supporting process. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would agree with you on that. It is alongside, but we don't need to, I don't think we need to handle this outside of the procedures bylaw process. Comments on this? Okay. Seeing none. Councillor Patola, could you read the motion again, just because we don't have it written in front of us, just to make sure everyone's clear on the wording?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a motion that council directs staff to prepare a policy on the form that staff reports take, including requirements to be written, except in situations where staff indicates otherwise, that they contain all background information and provide a review of all relevant courses of action, but at least 2 options for proceeding, those not including do nothing or the do something else options.
Thank you. Would you accept just a slight change to that, just to say direct staff to prepare a policy for consideration?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, then on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, thank you. And moving on to item M4 from Councillor Solda, an update on the racquetball club.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would love to hear an update on the Racquet Club, what's happening there. It's been a number of years, it feels like, that they haven't done anything on the outside of their building, and so many people are still asking me about it. I can't give an answer. I know there's a process, and they have a certain amount of time, so when is that up, and how are we moving forward?
Thank you. So is this on the development permit and building permit?
Development.
Okay.
No, I think it's development.
I think it's a development permit on that one. Do we have an answer on that today, or if not, we can bring back an update?
Madam Mayor, we prefer to bring back an update with accurate information. Oh, I see Scott is standing. So, well, Scott, if you're ready to speak to it.
Well, I can give somewhat of an answer, and we can bring more details if necessary. As council knows, you did approve a development permit. A building permit was subsequently applied for, and that building permit has been issued. But I guess I don't have a current status on what work has or hasn't been done at this point.
Thank you. And in general, how long is a building permit active for?
You have 2 years, but I think you need to have started the work within 6 months.
And does a development permit have a timeline like similar as well?
Also 2 years.
Okay, Councillor Solda.
But there's been nothing done on the outside of the building. Like, I haven't seen anything. There's been nothing moving, and it's really frustrating for the public to keep driving by.
So why don't we ask, I think that's great general information. Why don't we ask for, if council would like, a high-level report from staff on an update to this specific building, because I know that over the last year, there's been many questions, and we've asked before, and at a point, the building permit was in our process, and so it was all, I think, in compliance. But if that 6-month timeline has possibly lapsed, then it might be time for a different route. Would council like to get a report on this? Okay, moved by Councillor Mealy.
I'll
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Thanks, Scott. Okay, we'll move on to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of City Council. Would anybody like to come forward today? We'll go to Keith at the back first and then Roland next. Thank you, Keith. And if you don't mind just introducing your name and address.
Keith Ambrose, 3147 2nd Avenue. I'm just picking up the agenda for today, and I'm looking at the new business here, and I'm just going to give you some concerns. So I'm 61 years of age. I don't want technology in my life. I might be the odd one out, but I have to work with it, right? So, but here I see in the new business of virtual meeting technology, notice of motion to provided February 13th, 2023, that council directs staff to implement virtual attendance technology, i.e. Zoom. I want to make some comments from the outside, somebody who doesn't use Zoom, somebody who observed you people, or some of you people using Zoom in the past. Terrible. There's got to be some very strict rules for people. So when you're in the privacy of your own office or home or your own private space, it's different from being right here in this, at this podium where there are rules of conduct, rules that are expected, right? Even if we get angry sometimes, there's rules, right? At home, I've noticed, not just this council, everywhere, everybody using computers, rules are out the door. There are no rules, there's no respect. I've noticed there's no respect, none whatsoever. And it goes across the board. Even if the person would normally carry themselves with respect, when they're on Zoom, when they're in their own private space, there's a lot going on in those backgrounds. There's people, the system can be manipulated. I can't be manipulated standing here. It'd be tough. You'd have to shut that down and I would speak louder. I'm just saying. But Zoom, anything on a computer can be manipulated. The people, when you give access, like say there's a group of people here and there's 3 people want to speak, and I usually just step back when I see more important things that people want to, I just step back. But if somebody's at home calling in and they're taking up one of those spaces, well, I'm just going to say this could be a group of people who's organized, and they could be disruptive. And if I were disruptive, you'd eject me and ask me to behave myself, maybe not come back for a month or 2. You do something. But with the internet, you do nothing. You can do nothing. You're powerless. We are powerless at home when we're watching. We can't complain. We can't do until later on. We can't do much. So when technology enters the picture, you shouldn't abandon good systems. And that's what people are doing in general. They're abandoning good systems. Totally. And I want to say this, it's hard not to be critical of this. You guys have abandoned good systems. Some of you weren't here. The previous council decided to have meetings during the day because some people couldn't stay awake for meetings during the evening. That eliminated all the youth, most of the workers, 9-to-5 workers, and affected your attendance. And now attendance is being used in this argument, or will be used in this argument. And you're going to reduce attendance, and then you'll be having like a Chinese system where we don't even know where you are on that Zoom thing. And it's not the same as being in a room.
Sorry to interrupt, Keith. It is technically question period. So
Yeah, okay, so I've said enough on that issue.
I'm hoping you have a question.
Yeah.
I'm hearing so far your question is, please
I'll just
consider.
form a question for you then. Would you people be kind enough to consider those of us who don't want the technology to remain accessible? This remain accessible for us? And I know it's hard to stand at a podium, sometimes for me, sometimes for others. Don't let that's too bad. That is too bad.
Yeah.
If you're not brave enough to stand up here, then your subject matter is not important to you enough. Or you could have a substitute do it. Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
my question
Keith.
is, please give it some consideration. Please
Yeah.
think about that. Please consider us.
Yeah, thank you for that, Keith. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Ambrose, for coming. I appreciate those comments and having a couple of parents who are definitely not technologically inclined, I guess we can call it that. So what I saw from Councillor Douglas's motion was to add to this and to not go away from this, to have a person able to come up and speak. And that's why it's going to go to procedures by law, because if we have 5 people on YouTube and 3 people on Zoom and 5 people here, who gets to talk? And then we need to go through that, and that's the next process. But I totally hear what you're saying. I think council hears what you're saying. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I don't want this to go away. I want someone to be able to walk through that door and come to the podium and ask a question while we're here. And I don't think that will go away. I think this is just for the people at home who may not be able to make it here, who have the YouTube and the webcam and that, and still able to engage apart from this. But I'd like to think that this is still going to stay.
Sorry, I have to say something, and I appreciate everything you said from the heart, and I firmly think you believe that. People in today's society take advantage of everything they can. We have, 20,000 citizens and 18,000 handicap stickers rolling around this community. And if you allow people to sit on their butt on their couch at home, they will. They'll choose that. Most people will choose that. So it'll interfere with the system. More is not always better.
Thank you, Keith. I have to,
Yeah.
sorry, just procedurally around those rules, I do just have to stop you because it is question period. But appreciate the input, and you're welcome to come back, of course, public input period, or write to us additionally on the topic. Thank you, and it's not something that we're rushing into one way or the other. Other questions or comments? Roland?
That's okay. I understood. I'll save editorializing for later. Thanks for the new technology. I was actually watching at home. The picture is crystal clear. I like the split screen. The audio is fantastic. Now I don't have to crank the volume like crazy. And then I heard Mr. McGifford say, come on down, like on The Price is Right, and ask your questions. So here I am. Just a couple today. I'll leave the rest for actual budget, but I thought I could actually ask these today to get them into the record. Referring back to an agreement on the 20th of October 2014, the city entered into an operating agreement with FortisBC Energy, and the agreement was for 20 years after the initial term and to continue indefinitely unless terminated in accordance with the section 16.5 of the agreement. On page 16, section 12.1.1, it says that FortisBC agrees to pay to the municipality a fee of 3% of the gross revenues received by FortisBC for provision and distribution of all gas consumed within the boundary limits of the municipality. Page 16, section 12.2, payments by FortisBC to the municipality will be made on the first day of March of each year of the agreement in respect of the amount received by FortisBC during the portion of the term of this agreement, which is in the immediately preceding calendar year. So what I'm wondering is, what has been the operating fee revenue received by the city from FortisBC on March 1st for each of the years 2018 through 2022 inclusive? I'm wondering, because March 1st is 36 hours away, so I guess there's another payment coming, whether we could get that information. I'm not sure when Fortis, maybe they don't pay till the end of, the city doesn't receive it till later. Where is this revenue captured on the city's financials, line number or category or schedule? And where currently and where previously has this revenue been spent in the city's budget? So if we could have some clarity on those ones. The other is, there were two previous agreements in place between the city and the Chamber of Commerce, both expired December 31, 2022. Have either or both of these agreements been renewed? I saw in the agreements there was provision to renew without, that there was a clause in there that the automatic renewal. So have they been renewed? What are the time lengths of the renewed agreements? And for each of them, what is the total contracted amount for the term?
Thank you, Roland. So your first set of questions we'll add to our budget Q&A and bring that information back. Tim, are you able to provide an update on the contracts with the chamber?
No, Madam Mayor, not right now. We'll have to bring that back.
Thank you for that. So we'll get that information, provide an update as soon as we're able to.
All right, thank you. I might have spoken a little too loud. I have a voice that projects. So thank you for your time.
Other questions from members of the public today? Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Hagan from Northport. I was just wondering if you could tell me, so that we don't speculate anymore, what's going on in the Staples parking lot? What's being put in there?
I am not sure. I'm not sure if that's something the city has issued a permit for, or if it's...
I'm not aware, Madam Mayor, it's private property, but I'm not aware if there's a building permit issued or not.
Okay, because there's speculation that it's a 5G tower that's going in to make that QR codes for each business up there. So I want to make sure that that's not a rumor, and I'm just asking the question of you to find out what that is. So you said it's private property, so that means they can just do whatever they want on that property, or I don't understand
Madam Mayor,
the
that's not what I
process.
said. I said it's private property, and I am not aware right in this moment what the project is, or if there's a building permit issued for it.
Thank you. So we can get that information. there is a process if a tower is being put in that would require permitting and others. So we can bring back the information on what is going in there.
Yes, that would be great. Just, I don't know how the procedure works. So I'm just trying to figure out, don't want to speculate. People are rumors. I just wanted to come here and make sure so that I can actually have an answer. And I know I see stars in your guys' eyes when I see the billions of dollars that are coming pretty soon. What is the procedure on that? Like if there is going to be money handed to you, how does that work? And how do you decide which project you're going to take on and which money you're going to take? And does that come to the public before you decide to jump in on that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we will soon receive an amount from the province of what our portion of that $1 billion that they're giving directly to municipalities and local governments, what our portion is. That money will come, from what we understand, with some restrictions. It's money for infrastructure, and there's a definition of what infrastructure is for that. It will be going into a specific reserve, designated, kind of the province gives us rules around that. But every bit of money that we spend comes into a budget process. So the process that we're in right now, which you've been engaging in, is like that's where it will get decided. It will be, put into either into a reserve if there's projects that are coming out of that reserve, then those will be listed in our capital financial plan. Those will be completely transparent. It will show that the money is coming from that specific reserve, and there'll be public discussion and multiple readings of that budget so that everybody is aware. Occasionally, we do amend the budget partway through the year, and so it could be that a project comes up that's of significant importance, and although it wasn't put into the budget originally, maybe we receive other grant funding and we want to use some of those funds, then we could amend the budget partway through the year, but that is done in an open public council meeting as well. So all of those discussions, all of our budget discussions are done in open council meetings.
Oh, that's great to hear. I just wasn't sure if the province gives you money and you have to go along with everything that they tell you to do with it. That's what I'm kind of trying to understand.
Yeah, no, so it is, the intent of those funds are for infrastructure, and there's a reasonably broad definition of the type of infrastructure that we're able to use it for. And that's all been publicly released by the province, so there is more information on there, that with the news release. On what type of infrastructure they're allowing us to use those funds for. So we determine which projects are of importance to us and which are priorities, and we work within the scope of what they're allowing us to do with those funds.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. And I have to say, I agree with that man about the people getting together, because I wasn't sure what an e-town was, and if it's just online or people can just certainly only ask a certain amount of questions, because I went to the Island Health one and there was only a certain amount of questions that were allowed to be asked, so I was hoping that that wouldn't happen here. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from members of the public? Joseph.
Hi, my name's Joseph. I live here in Port Alberni. And I was going to leave it for another time because there's the budget talks going on. So I could have left it for maybe that discussion. But one of the things I wanted to ask was the costs on the SOMAS lands for the upcoming year for insurance, for security, and other costs maybe associated with, I can probably find that at one of those meetings. But I'm just curious what those costs might be projected for this year for insurance and, as I say, for security. And there's probably a lot of other costs involved, what those might look like for this year.
Absolutely. So we can add that to our budget Q&A. There is a specific line item. I don't have it off the top of my mind right now, but we can add that to our budget Q&A and highlight that at our next budget meeting for you to get the information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question. It's been brought up that the city works yard is being looked at being relocated. I think there's been some money put towards looking at the possibility of what it might cost, what that might look like. And so that's been brought up, and I think it's been mentioned that because of the potential for flooding, if there should be another tsunami, and I'm just wondering how that reflects on the SOMAS redevelopment. If that's the issue there, they're moving for that reason, then what would you be doing with SOMAS? Because that would also be in that same,
For sure. So the public works potential move is very much around us needing to have our access to our equipment to continue to service the community. We allow lots of development in tsunami zone, flood zone. We do have bylaws that guide that development though, so there are restrictions around what can and cannot be developed with tsunami and flood zone in mind.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
And the third question, if I may, just a real quick one. It looks like, I haven't been walking as much up Johnson in areas, but it looks like there's been an attempt to clear snow off the sidewalks, and I think the city's probably doing that. So I just want to say thank you if that's the case. And especially from Gyro Park, I noticed it was a mess yesterday and it's cleared today. So it looks like that's the case. There's been a greater effort to keep some of those areas clean. Is that correct?
That's a great question. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, and thanks for noticing that. I've seen our city crews out constantly clearing
and I would say
sidewalks, so
thank you.
really appreciate that work and appreciate it being
Absolutely.
recognized by the public.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.